It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company here in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in. At 7:35, Congressman Mike Waltz on yesterday's Secret Service hearing. And at 8:05, Hogan Gidley, former White House spokesperson. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm talking fast because I want to get to this. First, three very important highlights from from yesterday's hearing of Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatham.
Why was Crooks able to fly a drone over the entire area the day of the rally and the day of his assassination attempt?
To my knowledge, he did not fly the drone over the entire area.
How did he fly a drone over the area, period? Any part of the area?
Again, I would have to go back and check the timeline of when that took place and when the event...
Why didn't you bring the timeline with you today to answer our questions?
I don't have all of the answers on the timelines based on the criminal investigation.
Were you not prepared today to answer our questions?
I am prepared to answer the questions based on the information and wanted to be able to provide.
Do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
That's shocking.
You hear the laughter in the room. Timeline. I have a timeline. It doesn't have specifics.
We have satellite images from the Butler Fairgrounds. Have you visited the site?
No, I have not.
9 days and you have not visited the site.
That's Congressman Fallon. And then there was this.
Does the Secret Service routinely record communications between and amongst detail?
Radio communications?
Any communication?
Email communications are captured, as well as text messages. And then, depending on the detail, radio communications are recorded.
Does the Secret Service have recorded communications from the July 13th event?
We do not have radio communications from that day.
Wow. All right. So those three moments, I think, are critically important to our conversation now with Susan Crabtree. She's a White House and national political correspondent at Real Clear Politics, one of our favorite websites. And she has been covering the mishandling of the Secret Services, or the Secret Service's mishandling, I should say, of the events of July 13th and from that point forward, better than I think any reporter. Susan, thank you for your great work and thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me and your interest. I was up on Capitol Hill, so part of my voice yesterday, all day running around talking to people after the hearing.
That.
But
well,
bear with me.
Yeah, no, we will bear with you. We'd rather have you at 50% voice than not at all. You did a great job of presenting questions that you think need to be asked, and it seems like both sides of the aisle asked most of those questions. Where do we stand right now in terms of resolving some of the mystery surrounding this assassination attempt?
Well, I have a story about this. I was working on it late last night, and I feel like even though she only provided, Kimberly Cheatham only provided shards, little pieces of evidence, she kept referring to the FBI investigation as a reason why she couldn't provide details. And she had a timeline without specifics, which I thought was, the perfect takeaway line from the whole hearing. But what we're seeing emerge now, and I talked to, actually, Benny Thompson was very forthcoming in an interview last night with me. We're seeing this problem of siloed communications between the Secret Service and local law enforcement. You had Senator Ron Johnson come out with a very detailed initial report from his 1 week investigation on Sunday. His office gave me that. First, I put it out on Twitter. I was on a plane, and I looked over it and really pored over it, and it had a whole section on the fact that the local law enforcement were talking to each other. There were several county local law enforcement represented there, Butler County and Beaver County, and they were talking to each other, and they were not talking to the Secret Service until the very end. It was an hour long where they had flagged the sniper. They were watching they had flagged him as suspicious. They were watching his activity. They saw him get out the rangefinder. And then they were taking pictures of him, but they weren't communicating that immediately to the Secret Service. Now, yesterday, Kimberly Cheatham testified that there's interoperability between the Secret Service and local law enforcement when they're relying on local law enforcement so much as they did in this situation. But that didn't seem to occur because when I talked to Benny Thompson, who's the ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, he told me that when he was there on the ground, he did not, that was a glaring omission to him, that there was not local law enforcement in a command center coupled with the Secret Service.
Well, yeah, Susan, this is, I find it so interesting to talk about the problem of siloed communications, and that Benny Thompson is saying that this is a problem when he has oversight over DHS, which was created to correct the siloed communication that led to 9/11. I mean, why, if Benny has identified this as a problem, and it has been a problem for a while, obviously, why didn't he do hearings on this?
Well, they're having a hearing today, and of course the Republicans lead that committee now. He's just the ranking member, so he has to defer to them. But yeah, he brought it up to me last night. I'm sure he's going to bring it up at 10 o'clock when they have their hearing. But they don't have Cheadle there. But they went to a number of Homeland Security Committee members went to Butler yesterday, and I thought it was very funny because the Republicans sort of walked around on the roof, and they had 70-year-old Carlos Jimenez shoot a video of himself walking around the roof saying it's perfectly safe. I don't understand why it would be dangerous. It's kind of a stunt, but it was an effective one.
The sloped roof thing was such an egregious statement from Director Cheadle. We're speaking with Susan Crabtree. She is one of the top reporters focusing on the events since the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And I know that you are loath to reach conclusions. Your job is to sort of deliver information as you get it and continue to let us know what questions have not been answered. But I got to ask you, it seems like there's two paths to go here, that this was just gross incompetence, negligence, everything that could go wrong did go wrong all at the same time. Or again, my brain doesn't even want to say it out loud, but that there was some sort of willful negligence where somewhere within the hierarchy of the Secret Service or Homeland Security, it was like, yeah, you know what, provide Trump the bare minimum of what he needs. I know they're asking for more. They'll get what we give them, and, let the chips fall where they may. Or something even more nefarious. I mean, am I wrong to even raise those issues?
Well, it's nonsensical to have an outmoded protocol that says former presidents don't get as much as current presidents and vice presidents when the former president is President Trump and he's attracting 50,000 people.
Right.
This is just, and he is who he is. And that he's attracting more threats than anyone else on the campaign trail.
I would argue that he's attracting more threats because of the rhetoric of Biden and leaders of the administration. They're the ones who were saying he has to be stopped at all costs. Susan, I know your voice is fried. Can you stay with us? We got to do a quick traffic break.
That's fine.
Okay, because I want to pick up where we're leaving off here. Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics at 7:50.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We continue with Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics, on the Secret Service, the scrutiny, justly so, on the Secret Service procedures that led to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And you said an outmoded plan for security where a former president who is now running for president and doing all of these huge outdoor rallies with tens of thousands, you would think they would get a higher security detail. But no, they're still sticking with, former presidents get this compliment. Can I ask you this, though? It appears as though the First Lady got 5 times more security for her confined event for several hundred people just an hour away from Butler, Pennsylvania. Have we confirmed that in fact the First Lady of the United States, who, again, I don't want anything to happen to her, but she is not in any way an elected official or someone that has responsibilities in the government. Did she have that much more Secret Service protection than Donald Trump did that day?
Well, I broke that story on Sunday, and it was from whistleblowers, protected whistleblowers that came forward to Senator Grassley's office and provided him some internal emails showing that 3 post standers were allotted to the Trump rally and 12 were allotted to the Jill Biden rally. Dinner with the Italian sons and daughters. It was inside. It was not even 300 people. So the post standers, that's just one piece of the puzzle. They have that piece. Post standers are Secret Service agents that are assigned to targeted areas of an event. But they're significant. That shows a level.
Real fast, I'm sorry, but I just want to get as much in as I can. The reason I ask is that it appears as though the secured area, which did not include this obvious sniper position, the secured area was condensed because they did not have the personnel to expand the secured area, and that's where the post standards would come into play, right?
Yes, they would come into play there. There's no excuse for that. That was a glaring mistake. But the other, the interesting things I've uncovered is that there were temporary people assigned to the detail. There was only one, I heard, the top special agent for Donald Trump's regular detail. He was the only one that wasn't temporary. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So they were dealing with the hodgepodge, and then they took issue with my use of temporary, and they said, "Oh, this is a normal thing we draw from field offices all over the country." Do you always draw from everyone except for one regular person? So you're working with a hodgepodge of people that haven't interacted with each other regularly. Whether that's normal or not, I don't think it's normal to just have one. His name is Sean Curran. He's also one of the agents that's reportedly did provide those requests for security. So he's the one very close and in charge of that detail. Other things I've been told is the site agent, which determines all the perimeters, was a very young female agent from the Pittsburgh office with very little experience. I've asked the Secret Service all of these questions. They just responded to me with a non-answer today on that issue between the Biden, the Jill Biden event dinner and the Donald Trump rally and the post standards. But I asked for it. Grassley has asked twice in the last 7 days for a full breakdown of all the personnel allotted to each so that we can decide for ourselves whether it was fair or not. And they're stonewalling Grassley. And yesterday she said it was sufficient.
Yeah.
It was not.
Clearly it wasn't sufficient leads to an assessment.
Susan, we're also... There's not a lot of information coming out on the investigation. She kept saying, the FBI is doing that. The FBI is doing that. The FBI is doing that. Ask the FBI. There's some odd sort of facts coming out. You've reported on this. The gunman, had several cell phones. He had the Michigan school shooter's photo, foreign encrypted apps. Are you confident after Cheadle got up there and just, sort of lied and misled and didn't really answer any questions? Do you think we'll really get the details on this? It all seems like more and more strange information is coming out, and there's no clarity.
Well, I think that the Secret Service, as my years of covering them, I think I've been covering them since 2013, they emphasize the secret part, and they don't realize that they are, when a big tragedy happens, when the Columbia blew up, they had instant press briefings every day, just for this very reason. So misinformation doesn't start spreading. And certainly now, there's people are logically coming to the conclusion when they see that there's encrypted apps based in Belgium, Germany, that there might be foreign influence involved. And you do have that Iranian plot they announced that they beefed up security for Trump because of this specific and generalized Iranian plot against President Trump. So, people are coming to logical conclusions. They're asking logical questions. Is there another gunman? Yeah. She said it was a lone gunman yesterday, so that was cleared up a little bit. But she didn't do enough to dispel conspiracy theories. She didn't do enough to say this wasn't a political decision on her behalf. Yeah. And there have been agents in the past that have said, I reported on one of them, that has said they didn't want to take a bullet for Trump. Right before the inauguration in 2017. So there's a history of inappropriate comments and behavior and political behavior on the part of managers in the Secret Service.
Speaking of that, Kimberly Cheadle herself, she has a long history in the Secret Service, but then she left the agency after the 2016 election. Do we know if she left specifically because she was uncomfortable protecting Donald Trump as president or Mike Pence as vice president?
No, I think that's a great question. She did go to Pepsi, and that is a normal career path for agents with that level of experience. They like to go to the corporate world once they were officially retired, and they obviously get a bigger paycheck.
But then she came back after Trump was gone.
Yeah, because
You know what
Joe
I mean?
Biden asked her to come
Yeah.
back. Right.
It's also one other thing, just in case, because I really appreciate you joining us, Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics. On the communications front, we know that the state and local authorities, law enforcement authorities, don't have direct communications with Secret Service. They have encrypted communications, which, by the way, are not recorded. So we have to sort of, figure this out after the fact. But you had mentioned in the command post, there are supposed to be state and local people there monitoring their communications to relay back to Secret Service, like right there next to them. Did that occur here? Because we know that citizens who saw this guy, 20 minutes before, they alerted law enforcement, local law enforcement. So do we know when the cops on the ground said, hey, we got a guy on the roof here, did that get to the command post, and was there someone there for state and local to be able to relay it to Secret Service?
No, and there was no. I really truly believe that we're drilling down into that now, and what I'm hearing is they were not side by side like Cheadle testified yesterday is supposed to provide interoperability. They didn't. I don't believe they were. If you read Senator Johnson's report, it's all about up until 5:59. They don't talk to the Secret Service. The Secret Service finally gets the message at 5:59. And there, I guess I'm told by my sources that the radio frequencies, you can't get them on the same page. It's impossible to do so with local. It's not practical. It's inoperable. Okay, well then have the command post set up for the way that Cheadle says it was supposed to set up. But if you go read Senator Johnson's report, it said it does not seem like that occurred. And then I talked to Benny Thompson. He too took away from his trip from Butler that the local officials that didn't occur, and they certainly had a briefing by themselves that morning about the whole event. And guess what? Secret Service wasn't on that briefing either.
Wow.
They weren't working together.
Susan Crabtree, great work at Real Clear Politics. I've really enjoyed following your work and your articles and your reporting on this. I really appreciate it. You're the right person in the right place at the right time, sadly, after these tragic events, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we try so hard not to speculate here but raise important questions that still remain unanswered so that people can see how conclusions can be leapt to. And that's why we want transparency. It's why we want more information. And thank goodness we've got Susan Crabtree, a reporter with her sources, able to answer those questions, but not the actual people in official positions at these institutions that we are told to trust. They are not acting in a trustworthy way.
That's
in
right.
other words, they are not worthy of our trust because of their behavior and because of their deceptions. But that's where we are. It's 7:25 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes, first on the fives with Steve Hirshorn and the Hadeed Carpet